here today to talk about the United Way and how this nonprofit supports our community is Donna Ponapinto, President and CEO of the United Way. Hello, my friend. Welcome.
Good to be here.
It's good to have you here. So, the United Way, full transparency, I harassed you, I'm on your board, I love the work you do, but for those who may not be familiar, can you give us an overview of what the United Way of Pierce County does and the role that it plays so pivotal in our community?
Well, when I think about, United Way and how to describe it, because sometimes it's hard to describe.
It is.
But, I think of us as being those thought partners, problem solvers, conveners, how we bring people together and communities together to look at what are those issues out there and how do we solve them? How do we solve them together? Yeah, and that when I think about United Way and the dollars we raise and the money that gets back out into the community, it's really all about how do we, make sure that families have what they need. The Alice families,
Yes.
the asset limited, income constrained, employed families out in our community. We've got that bold goal of lifting 15,000 households out of poverty by 2028.
We're going to do it.
And, we are. We're at 11,600.
Yep.
Right now,
we're there.
Just based on investments of our community, we're able to touch so many lives.
Donna, you and your team keep so many balls in the air when we address those pressing challenges, some of the ones you just spoke about facing Pierce County right now. So, if a snapshot as of today, what are those pressing challenges and how is United Way addressing them?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge today is basic needs, access to basic needs.
Absolutely.
The folks that are going to be impacted by reduction in food assistance, the SNAP benefits, the Women, Infants, and Children, the WIC. Program or other benefits out there that families really need to make sure that they can get on that pathway to self-sufficiency. Affordable housing, we got to figure that out. But the unhoused, and how do you make sure that people have access to safe, quality housing, childcare? So it almost seems like the issues don't change.
Right.
They just, unfortunately, sometimes seem like they're even more severe. The cost of groceries, for families, and just
so
being
expensive.
very expensive. So just those very basic needs are the things that we're seeing.
I love that. Can you share a success story or an example of how the United Way directly changes lives here in Pierce County? Because you do it so quietly sometimes.
So, first, we're always focused on Alice, right? Always focused on that population. So we have been involved in some guaranteed income. Cash is a strategy. I think I mentioned that the last time. So making sure, we had 175 families receive $500 a month for a year. And the stories that you heard about people being able to get out of debt, being able to save, being able to take their kids to the movies. I mean, just those things that we often don't think about. And families, it allowed them to breathe. It allowed them to actually plan ahead. And so, that to me was such a great success. We had the community reinvestment plan that we were a part of. That was through the Commerce Department, focusing on communities that were impacted by the war on drugs. We received some funds through the Department of Commerce, through United Ways of the Pacific Northwest, to do match savings programs. So these match savings programs allowed individuals to save up to $10,000 and get that match. To be able to go towards education, housing, put a down payment on a home, for transportation, and for business.
Wow.
And so, imagine someone being able to save up to that amount, get it matched, the difference that makes. It really is life-changing.
Or if you hand anybody $10,000, it's life-changing.
Exactly.
You just launched something that I think many of those families are familiar with, but it has a different name now, and that's Access Pierce. And it's a new navigation center for resources. So how is changing the way people connect to services, and how does it change it in terms of what it is now and also what 211 was.
Yes. So, we've been a 211 call center for
Yes.
decades. And so one of the things, as they focused on being one central call center for the state, we had always been doing navigation. And so this allows us to go even deeper and to really help families navigate those systems around transportation, housing, access to housing, family resources, as well as basic needs. And so it provides us that opportunity to not just connect people to a phone number, but really connecting them, that warm handoff,
Yes.
to connecting them to services.
Absolutely. From poverty to possibility is one of my favorite things that you do, besides every year the Alice report is coming up in November 18th. Give people an idea what the purpose is of this event if they don't know, and who should attend?
Yes. This is our 9th year, and I'm
Wow.
really excited this year. Each year we build on the previous year, and it's all about bringing people together to talk about how do we break, the barriers to economic equity, right? How do we make sure that people have access and opportunity? And this year our theme is the urgency of now. And mobilizing community power to end poverty. Our keynote speaker is Matthew Desmond, who I am thrilled is going to be here, but he's a sociologist at Princeton, wrote Evicted, and
Yes.
also wrote Poverty by America, which I've read 3 times, and just looking forward to having this discussion about why poverty in America, and how can we as a community mobilize and galvanize the community.
Yes.
And build up the public will to really address those root causes to poverty. We talk about it, we do things, at community levels, organizations doing wonderful things. I think what United Way does is great work in the community, but how do we really solve for this?
Yes.
And build that public will so that we can build the political will to do it.
See, exactly. So many times you have said it exists because we allow it.
Yes.
So at what point are we going to stand up and say no more?
Right.
For people watching who want to get involved, what are the best ways they can support the United Way's mission, either through volunteering or advocacy or donations?
All of those things.
All of the
All
above.
of those things.
Yes.
Advocating, volunteering. We've got everything but the turkey coming up in November, donating, attending the Poverty to Possibility Summit.
Yes.
In November. We offer scholarships for folks who aren't able to pay. I just, think that advocating probably these days is the most important thing. Calling your legislators and making
Yes.
sure that, that families that are working really hard every day have what they need.
Absolutely. It is always just an inspiration to have you on the comfy couch. And I consider myself so fortunate to get to see you once a month. Please take care of you and your team. And I want you back on the couch sooner than later.
I'll be back.
All right. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
We have Lakewood Playhouse coming up on their 87th season. They're hanging over there. They're on deck. We'll be right back after this quick break.